I guess we're broadcasting.
Oh, we're off there currently. Oh, now.
I have a live button.
Yep, I have a live button as well.
Oh my god, this is amazing. I'm totally, like, in the technology here. We are completely... I'm just trying to cut off any background noise. Alrighty. Awesome. Okay. So, yeah, I wanted to record this for two reasons. Just one for, just so I have a record of the conversation, because it's hard for me to remember every single thing. And the other is because I actually want to test this thing out to see if this works, because I actually want to do some interviews in the future.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Whatever works for you, whatever you want to test out, I don't mind.
I just need to do one other thing so I can hear you actually in my headphones. The nice thing is this laptop is new enough and all my Google settings are new enough so that doesn't like those. All right, hold on a second. I mean, I can hear you over my laptop. It's just there's enough ambient sound, so that I just want to put on these giant clunkers here. Okay, go ahead and talk.
Hello?
Hello? Oh, awesome. Much better. Much better. Awesome. Right.
Do I have a headset? But mine's all hooked up to my laptop and you're on my iPad again because it's...
Oh my god, those are massive.
They are. They make my...
Those are great.
Yeah. I didn't think they were going to be this big when I bought them, but they're like proper gaming ones, and they were like... instead of paying what would have been like $70 for them, they cost like $12. So...
Right. Well, plus, I mean, they look like they have the ability to be, a little bit better for a studio purpose. So.
Oh yeah, they're really good, aren't they?
Because you want
like that they light up.
Well, that's true too. I mean, if you're going to be geek guides, then you want to have the geekiest headphones that you can, right? All right.
Mostly with the ghoulish and the horrible and things, but yeah, I do like my nerd stuff, like a major geek with most things I do.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to do a phony baloney intro and say, hey, welcome to Flameape Conversations. My name is Gregory, a.k.a. Flameape, and I'm an artist and internet person, and I'm always living on the internet, it seems, and I think that's not uncommon in today's day and age. And as an artist and as a comics artist and a person who likes to engage with other people who are artists and also people connected to comics and other kinds of do-it-yourself publishing and stuff. I've really wanted to do interviews for a million years, and this is going to be my first interview, but it's also going to be my comic and sort of, well, what do we want to call it? Is it a life coach? I don't know. Like, I guess it's kind of a... I think it's
definitely not a life coach.
I know it's not a life coach, but it is a bit of coaching that you're doing, potentially, as long as this relationship works out.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I'll see if this is actually something worth leaving up on YouTube or not, but it's really good to talk to you. And this is Pippa Bailey of Geek Guides, right?
Ghoul Guides.
Oh, Ghoul Guides, right. Oh, I got to change the name. Yes, it's obviously Pippa Bailey of Ghoul Guides. And can you just real briefly just tell me what it is, or tell us what you do?
Oh yeah, so I'm an independent reviewer of horror alternative works, pretty much anything that kind of pushes boundaries and taboos out there, because I suppose that's the kind of thing I'm into. I'm also a writer, due to become a published author as of December this year. I'm also working on my own 6-part series of books. Working with people all over the country, all over the world on different projects, mostly just because I really love the industry.
And when you say working with people, what kind of stuff are you helping them with, and what kind of stuff are they doing?
Okay, so so I worked with authors on their Kickstarters. So, for example, there was The Untold, which Pete Palmiotti is doing the inking for. So
Peter Palmiotti of Studio Synergy podcasts, and also what is it? He does an artist live thing as well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. So I mean, I ended up. Well, literally, I tend to go through Kickstarter looking for different projects, and I happened to come across one that it piqued my interest, and with about 3 weeks left to go, it wasn't as close to its target as I think they wanted to be, and I offered to help get the project some more support, because I'm pretty good networking wise, and yeah, so I ended up being brought on board as an administrator on the project. And so since then I've been I'm building them a website at the moment.
Wow, you're doing a lot more than just marketing assist. You're actually getting into nuts and bolts of presentation and that sort of thing. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy building websites. I used to just do it for fun, and I've sold websites that I've built before. So
that's great. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm building them one at the moment because they wanted somewhere to actually sell the work after the Kickstarter's over, and I was like, well, that's fine. I'll get you a website built. So that I'll be passing over to the owners. Well, the owner, Dan Farrand, at some point soon. And then it's like I've been offered to pop over to California and work with Hectic Films on bits and bobs with their team. And
what does Hectic produce?
They produce horror movies, independent horror movies.
Oh, that's great.
With Ricky Bird, Ricky Bird the second, I believe, is the owner of the company, and I ended up meeting them through Tony Rapino, who's an author and a sculptor in Pennsylvania. So I ended up meeting him, and through him I met several members of Hectic Films. So there's Steve Sanders and several other people, and so it's been like really, really cool to meet lots of people, and then everything sort of snowballed from there. I'm at the point now where people are starting to send me things to review, which I'm still finding unusual that people actually care about my opinions on topics, and I love that I can get involved with more things, because I'm really into sort of supporting the independent horror scene, I suppose, more than anything else, because a lot of people look at horror and they don't seem to see projects that are worthwhile, because it's such a tarnished reputation if you work in horror or you work with alternative things, and I think that's a real shame, because there is so much out there that people are yet to experience. And I just want to give back to the industry. So I mean, everything I do, I'm not paid for anything I do. I do it out of love for the industry.
This is something that I'm not entirely surprised to have run into somebody. Or let me just preface something for anybody that might watch this. I've over the years been involved as an artist, invited to Studio Synergy, Peter Palmiotti's group hangout chat that he then republishes on YouTube, and most of the people on there are comic creators and also just independent artists in general, but mostly it's comics, people doing their comics. The last episode, which I believe is still the latest episode of Studio Synergy, yeah. Pippa was one of the you were one of the people who was a guest and a participant, and I hadn't done one in a long time, so I didn't know anything about you or your engagement in what Peter's doing. And in a subsequent chat, you were able to sort of tell me much more about the involvement that you've been having with other creators, Kickstarters, and other aspects of sort of like their getting to the finish line.
Yes,
right? Yeah. And what I thought was really fascinating was that this is really coming out of your fandom. This is coming out of your interest in the stuff that you want to see happen, because you want to read the book, you want to watch the movie, you want to read and own the comic book that comes out of the project, out of the Kickstarter, and in the bigger sense, the project itself. And I found, like I said, I wasn't surprised to hear about this, but I still was taken back because this is this fascinating aspect of the sort of like the 21st century of fandom, where a person in England, and I assume that's correct. You're in the
I'm in England. Yeah.
Okay. The person who's literally an ocean away from me or some other individuals. I don't know how many other people you help that are in continental Europe or England or that side of the ocean, but a person this far away from myself, having read an online PDF that you were able to flip through and read the first issue of Holiday Mountain Madness, the book that Bill Woodcock and myself are doing, you were able to enjoy that book. You read it, you loved it, and then expressed to me how much you were interested in. And you were just like, well, is there Kickstarter? What are you doing? And I told you, we had a very long conversation, and I told you my whole history and the history of the book. And you were like, I'd really like to help you get this to the finish line.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by that, because I was like, you know, it's one thing to have somebody respond to what you're doing and say, well, I want to buy it, or I really love it, or whatever. But then to want to go the extra mile and say, like, well, you know what, I believe in this, and I want to take it on, like a few things, the few that I do every year, the few that you do every year, and you want to take this on as a project to like help us get it to that place, is amazing. And it's this fundamental earthquake of change that has occurred in the way fans and professionals who have professional skills can interact with and assist those who create the works that they love. And this is a very new territory. It's very interesting.
It's nice because instead of it just being you go to a shop and you buy a product and you enjoy the product and you think, oh, I'll wait for the next one. It's having the ability to actually get involved with this and say, hi, I love what you're doing. Can I somehow become involved in this? And it's taking that whole kind of fan and creator and that those two separate worlds and bringing them together, where you're mutually helping each other. And I really enjoy that about Kickstarter. I think it's fantastic. And I was very nervous the first couple of times I contacted people, because you do find yourself in a position where it's like, should I be contacting these people? These people are creators. Will they have time for me? And I don't think I've contacted a single person who's said no to me saying, can I talk about your product? Can I share it and discuss it? I mean, I've had several people sort of say, what are you charging for this? And it's like, nothing. I mean, what I do with the Ghoul Guides wouldn't exist if these creators didn't exist. If there wasn't anything for me to talk about, nobody would be interested in what I'm doing. So for me, it's a mutual relationship. I mean, everything kind of comes full circle. I support the industry comes back and supports me. So for me, it's really exciting to be able to work with people, and then having people contacting me to ask them, to help with projects now is mind blowing. Because I absolutely love it. I mean, I would love for this to be my full-time career. I would love to be able to let other things slide and go on to doing, marketing and publishing and publicity and my own projects as well. It's just a very exciting thing to be involved in at the moment.
And I'm very, very grateful for your interest and well, again, I'm a little speechless because it's this new territory,
Yeah.
And I find that and you're both a creative person and a fan, and obviously integrating marketing in what your fandom is, right?
Yeah.
And also, we should just say that, like, you're a composer, and
that's
correct?
I've got an honors degree as a classical composer for film and television music. So yeah, no, I'm reading music, creating notation. But I started to read music when I was 7 years old, and it's something I've done throughout my life. I've always been very creative. It just took me a very long time to realize that I wanted to write. I mean, I've had ideas and I've never had the confidence to put it down on paper, because throughout my degree, it was made apparent to me from my lecturers that it's likely I have dyslexia. So some things I do write, I struggle with, but I've always just worked that little bit harder, because when I struggled with it, nobody had an answer for why I struggled so much. So I just worked harder. And I want to write. That's what I want to do. I've got a passion for it. I feel guilty at the moment because I haven't written much for quite a while, and I feel like I've just left my characters in limbo, and I want to sort of bring them back to life and let them carry on their story. So it's going to be fun when I have the time to do more writing. But unfortunately, I work 40 hours a week, and then on top of that, I come home and I probably do an extra 60 hours a week across the things I do with Ghoul Guides and other creators and other projects and things I'm working on at the moment. But yeah, I mean, it's always busy all the time.
That's amazing. I mean, I just think that's a lot of that's a very full week, very full month, and day to day, very full day. And actually, do you think? Because obviously, I'm sure you're an early adopter with the internet, and I'm sure that you were, and obviously you're a gamer too, and there's technology and internet and sort of socializing through the internet is a very, very deep part of your life, and also probably at this point long-term part of your life. So you've seen all the changes just like everybody else has. Are you amazed by, or is it just old hat now? But are you amazed by the intensity and diversity of how a relatively, in a sense, simple social networking tools can explode into these projects and associations and so on? Like, where are you at with that? Or is it kind of like, oh, this is just what I do, or are you like me, kind of amazed by how this stuff can just explode over just a conversation?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I mean, I've gone from being, within a short period of time, I've gone from being the person sitting there watching videos and going, yeah, this is fantastic. These people are amazing that they can do this. And then going, why can't I do it? If I care about this, why don't I give it a go myself? And I'm finding that I've been relatively successful with what I'm doing because people like me care about the industry and want to do more for it. And it's the realization that you can get involved in things, and social media is absolutely amazing. I mean, the amount of people you can meet and the things you can work on and how you can connect with other people that you would never have met otherwise. I mean, again, with me being in England and you and everybody else that I've worked with the studio Synergy being 3,500 miles away minimum, without the social media and without the fact that you can bring these projects to life through the internet now, I would never be able to connect with anybody. I mean, I know I may look, I'm a little bit older than I look like I am. So, I mean, I remember when mobile phones were just coming out, and when, everything was still dial-up and everything was just terrible dial-up. And you have like your big box PC that doesn't exactly run particularly well, and you can just about get, 8-bit music playing and things like that. So for me to see how much things have grown and expanded and how easy it is to converse with people now, it's just fantastic.
I'm actually typing the explanation for the show, so I'm sorry about the pause. No. And it's helping me. No, but what you're saying is really interesting, because you're actually talking about pre-cell phone, which now I know that we have that in common as well. And that brings into play some history stuff, which I would assume that there are going to be potentially people who watch this first episode that are going to say, like, what the heck was pre-cell phone? And, and the idea of using the mail as a means of actually like one of the only means of communication other than an actual telephone, right? A proper telephone, to have communication between fans and the creators, and what a long-term wait and long-term sort of, you had to adjust to really being patient, and weeks and weeks go by, or maybe months, right? Did you engage with creators or other professionals that you had admiration for, or had wanted to have some kind of social connection with? Did you use the letter writing as a means to communicate with them, and what was that like?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I wrote to people that had influenced me, and I still, now I'm kicking myself that I never wrote to my biggest influence, because he passed away this year. And I was like, David Bowie was my biggest influence. I mean, I was the 7-year-old child surrounded by piles of books, listening to Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars on a Walkman. And that for me was the epitome of my childhood. I was sat there with piles of horror books, and other kids were playing with dolls, and I wanted that. And I wish that I'd written to him when I was younger, and said how much of an influence he'd had on my life, and how much. I mean, I was always awkward, and I was always an unusual child, and I probably still am pretty unusual now, even as an adult. But sort of some of the people that you can get in contact with, and some of the people I wrote to, inspired me so much and gave me the confidence to be myself. And that's one thing I love about sort of this industry, and the way that you can work through social media nowadays, is that you can be yourself, and you can meet so many like-minded people. And I just think that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, I have made so many friends recently who have the same sort of influences as myself, and have the same belief in the projects that we're working on and what they want to put out there for people, and that just makes me so happy that we live in an age where you can meet people who inspire you, and you can inspire them, and it's not just a matter of hoping that somebody will notice you, or writing to somebody and finding that you may never ever get a response.
It almost made it kind of this sort of like it was like exciting, right? Because you didn't know if you would get a response or not, right? So it's almost like it was like more of an adventure story using the mail, right?
Yeah.
Did you feel like that?
Yes, it was. I mean, anything you did, you'd hope, but you spend your time sort of going, I really hope I wrote the address correct. What if it ends up in the middle of nowhere? What if it gets damp and nobody ever gets my mail? It's always so, and getting mail is always so much more exciting, because it's like, it's just still that physical thing. I mean, I'm very much into like how do I say it? I like physical things. Like when we talk about comic books, I would rather be holding something physically.
And that was something we talked about yesterday, and it totally comes into the notion of, like, let's say the Kickstarter or crowdfunding of any kind regarding projects, right? Is that comics are at least one of the not that there aren't other tangibles on a Kickstarter. Obviously, there's many things, shavers, whatever,
Yeah.
But it is interesting that unlike even a film, a comic, sidelining, of course, the exceptional success and continuing growth of digital as a platform, comics are still a medium that is really anchored in both historically and culturally and emotionally in the tangible paper book product, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I would just much rather have something tangible, something that I can pick up and feel and read, and it's almost like you can explore things in so much more depth when you can physically hold it. I love having things online. I mean, I was recently convinced to get a Kindle, and I've always sworn hands on I would never get myself a Kindle, because I love real books. I mean, I love old bookshops, and I love just that kind of thing. And I've got a Kindle now because I've been allowed to review books for a publishing company, and it allows me to get access to them a little bit easier than I would in paperback.
Right.
Although they send me a book every, because I back them on Patreon account. I get a book off them every month, which I'm slowly working my way through to review.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, nothing beats
Tell me.
being able to physically.
Oh, good. No, nothing beats the physical. Yeah.
No.
Sorry to talk over you.
No, it's fine.
I have to really curtail that because I get very excited, just like I know you do and other people out there do when we're talking. And actually, that's a kind of I'm going to just say something about that too. Like, it's very exciting to use this medium to directly converse with you. It would be very easy for us to text or whatever. But
Yeah.
and now, like, we're now adding this other layer, which is like, if you wanted to, you could go on your Ghoul Guides website and go on your YouTube channel and say, hey, I'm on there live right now, right?
Yeah.
And maybe we should be doing that right now. I don't know. Like, maybe we don't want to miss that opportunity, right? I may actually slam that into Facebook and, just to tell people. But that's this other thing is that, we're not the same human beings as others, right? As fans and consumers of fan friendly, consumables like fiction and music and so forth. Like, but certainly within, the tent poles of fandom, the sci-fi, the fantasy, the horror, the weird fiction, bizarro stuff, all these various different things that are essentially on some level or another niches, right? The fandom spikes and is resonant and potent, and then allows for us to really bring out our excitement, right?
Yeah.
Whereas there are other kinds of fandom that are, I think, kind of encourage a more sedate and maybe more distant involvement. But I think if you're into comics, you're into horror, you're into art in general, indie art, I would say, animation and TV shows and stuff like that. It seems like one other common thread is this level of engagement and excitement and a desire to communicate with others about all those factors in our lives and how it affects our lives. So now, again, bringing it full circle to the original topic, it's like, so now you're in this position where you're reviewing things. You have a YouTube channel with another individual, I believe, right?
Yes, with my my best friend, Leaf T, or Leaf, I call it for short.
Right.
Yeah, we've been friends for 15 years, and we just decided that one day, I mean, we used to spend tons of hours watching horror films, and one day she said, why don't we do something about this? Why don't we do something about our passion? And we decided to start a channel and just went from there. I mean, she's the one that came up with the name as well. Fantastic.
It's really good. It's a really great name.
Yeah, she's not been around much recently because she's not been very well. And she's recently been, I mean, this evening she's joined the Studio Synergy group on Facebook. So she's actually able to get involved in things more. Though she's a little bit shy, so I'm not sure how involved she'll want to get. But it's nice that she's now got the opportunity to speak to some of the people that I do. And now she's feeling a little bit better. Hopefully I will get some stuff recorded this weekend together. It's been almost a month since we've had an opportunity to record together.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? You just brought up another, prevalent, I don't want to say issue because that would maybe cast it in a dark light, but a fact of nature, I think more, that fandom, when I say fandom, I don't mean, I'm not talking about fandom of high art cinema or fandom of classical music, let's say, but what we all would talk about is fandom, again, sci-fi, horror, comics, TV shows, etc. There's a lot of us who have maybe social anxiety or have just plain sort of nerdiness or geekiness or have awkward backgrounds or maybe even upwards of mental illness, abuse, other kinds of factors that maybe, or high intelligence, certainly pervasive, various factors that would set us a little bit apart, or for some people a lot apart, and genre, material, and fiction and music and so on is any kind of storytelling mediums, maybe is even a better way to say it, are a means for escaping a bit of that awkwardness and also cathartically maybe even rising above it. And I think, and that also then engages these communities where you feel like, maybe in the outside world or your job, who gives a crap, or like, maybe there's nobody really engaged with. Suddenly in those worlds and spaces, even if they're purely text, like a forum or chatting, suddenly a person can explode in personality or in their engagement in a way that maybe they wouldn't feel comfortable with otherwise, right?
No, that's very true. Surprisingly, I would say almost every single creator that I've come in contact with over the sort of last few months is somebody who suffers from social anxiety or depression or any number of factors, because
Sure.
I suppose being a creator, you have to open yourself up to actually being completely honest with how you feel about things. And a lot of the time people spend a lot of energy trying to hide from the things that actually do scare them, trying to ignore it. And I mean, part of being a creator is opening yourself up to the things that you are scared of, and putting yourself in a position to actually really feel these emotions. And so I can understand how there are so many creative people out there who suffer from things such as depression, social anxiety, because we all tend to be a little bit of a recluse in our own minds with our own ideas and things like that.
Absolutely. And even if it's strictly from a professional standpoint of being anchored to one's desk because of whatever desk type of gig you're doing, like an artist or a programmer or a writer, a composer, whatever, it can be artistic or not, but all of those types of jobs, in fact, it's probably the case that the more freelance that they are, the more and more one is reclusive, because, in many cases, it's nearly impossible to grind in and focus in the way that one must in order to achieve even mediocre work, frankly, much less exceptional, and it's different than those technical and hard jobs that actually require the opposite, being in front of people, being outdoors, being whatever, no less demanding or needing of respect or acknowledgement. But it is uniquely the case that the more the creative thing is, the more you're probably screwed in tight to your chair and over a board or over a keyboard or over a piano or a typewriter, whatever the thing is that you use. So
yeah, I mean, you are sort of within enforced isolation, because I mean, nobody else can pull those ideas out of your head. You're the one that has to get it down on paper. So no matter what you're doing, nobody can ever really help you with what you're doing. Nobody else can ever really see things the way you do or know things. Because I mean, I just spent a couple of hours this evening discussing with Eric Faries about his comic book that he's creating, because we've not had a proper chat about what he wants to do before, and about what he's planning for his comic book. And obviously I'm not going to give that away because it's his project, not mine. Mm-hmm. And it was just fascinating to find out about how he's going about his creation, and the fact that I would love to be able to help him, but I can never bring forth the way that he wants his world to be created, or the way that he wants it to look as a writer and an artist. But I can help in respect to sort of like like the publishing and the marketing and the organizing and that side of things. Like with your project, I'm here as a support to help you be creative, to help you have the opportunity to open up and feel free to isolate yourself, because you've got something else there who can cover the social side of things while you focus on getting your ideas fully formed.
And this is something that again was like kind of like I knew that there was going to be a point in time where in order for Bill and my book, Holliday Mountain Madness, in order for any other project that we would work on, there was going to be a point in time where we would need to engage in some exterior forces. There's some other stuff. I mean, he's looking into trying to get us representation, agent kind of situation.
Yeah.
And there's a point at which a creator needs to have outside support, and frankly, even just on a business marketing level, outside engagement support parallel to the creation, because there's only so much you can do yourself. I personally have chronic health problems. We were talking about that yesterday, and that. But even if I didn't, I mean, there's only so many hours, and how are you going to do it? And of course, everybody does it. Like a lot of people do it. But of course, one must be the type that can live with 4 hours of sleep a night and never have a weekend off and ruin relationships and things, right? So that's why it's very interesting to have you, I mean, obviously we're still negotiating this, and we're still trying to figure out if this is going to definitely be a fit. But it seems like that's the case. But anyway, just trying to be mature and responsible about the conversation, right? But like it's the case that no matter on a blunt sort of brass tacks level, you get to a place, whether it's age, health, the work itself, whatever it is, a creator at some point is going to have to pull in other people. Of course, the reason why most of us indie creators cannot pull in other people is, again, a very brass tacks fact, which is scratch, dinero, money, gelt, all of that. Because one must generally hire an agent. One must hire a team, like an agency, right? I mean, that's how the world works, and that spins on money. So again, this is where this particular, the kind of loose subject of this conversation, which is where fandom can uniquely now intersect. Fan motivation to push a thing that they love can have this amazing intersection with creators who, let's say, don't have money, right? Who don't have the financial means.
Oh yeah, people going into Kickstarter, the majority, I mean, the projects that people do through Kickstarter, nobody is making money out of them. The extra money that they make at the end of it goes towards future projects. I mean, most people make exactly enough money to get the product created, to get the rewards go out to their backers, and to expand their sort of catalog or their portfolio of work. I mean, it's the idea that you're creating the grounds for a career through getting your name out there. And I mean, it's like with what I do, because I don't charge for anything I do, I like to work through a barter system. So I mean, I don't ask anybody to do anything for me, but because of the things I do, I've ended up with people offering to do things for me. So I've had so with my book, I've had several people offer to read and to edit for me,
right,
because of things that I've done for them. And I find myself sort of being offered free books all the time because people would like them to be reviewed. But for me, having more to read is fantastic. You can never have enough books. And I've been very lucky enough to meet people that I can just, like publishers, that I can straight out say, look, I'm really interested in getting my book out there. Is it something you would consider looking at, when it's ready? And knowing that I can already ask people, would you be comfortable with me putting something forward without the formality of having to send my paperwork to people and discussing over the phone, maybe if they'll write back to me and if they're interested in looking at stuff. I'm in the position where I can turn around to a publisher that I know and say, I'd like to see if you would take on my book, and having people, instantly going, yeah, that's great, I'll definitely have a look at it, and knowing that I can be confident in what I'm doing because of the fact that I've supported other people. The world is slowly moving away from the purely money based and back into the barter system of you help me, I'll help you.
Like we had in our conversation yesterday, I said, I wasn't totally comfortable with the idea of it being a completely free exchange, and I suggested, like, and of course this is dependent upon your publisher approving and whether or not you're this interests you, and looking at a bigger, looking at my portfolio on large and seeing if there's styles or techniques that I employ that would be appropriate. But like I said, I would do at least a book cover, if not more, if that's something that you would feel is an equitable trade. And at least at that point, we have an agreement to exchange that. And that is unique. And again, that is a unique situation that would not likely occur if we did not have this powerful but easy to use social networking engines to be able to instantly link up and make friendships, or I should say, be able to connect and then make these deals, right? Because we're all in the same boat,
Well, everybody needs something from somebody else, and it's the fact that it doesn't have to be so impersonal anymore. You can sit down and have a conversation with somebody whose product you care about and say, look, I'm really interested in what you're doing. I want to be there to support you. Let's work out some kind of arrangement. It's like yesterday, you wanted me to have a proper look at your Holiday Mountain Madness. And I mean, that's what I did this evening. I came home from my normal job, and I sat down and I popped open the PDF, and I had it on the Zoom tablet, so I could zoom in on each image and just like follow the whole thing through and look at how you've gone about creating it, reading all the text and everything. And so that's what I spent sort of like a good 2 hours just going over this, and looking at all the different aspects of it and how it worked and how you'd gone about inking and how you'd gone about with the designs of the pages and everything like that at all. Because, this was something we discussed. You wanted to make sure that I actually care about this project, and it's, I mean, just looking at yesterday, it was absolutely stunningly beautiful. And the way that you design things, it's just, I mean, I was blown away. I was discussing this actually with Leaf Tea about how it's almost like everything's just layered and layered and layered. And it's like trying to work out how you've managed to create these layers within the images. And I think we were discussing about some of the techniques you used yesterday, and that was just absolutely like mind-blowing for me that you've gone so much further than pencil on paper. Then there's just so much more to it, and that's just absolutely mind-blowing for me.
It's over years and years of working with Photoshop professionally and having to make really interesting things out of bits and pieces, and it's also a lot of experimenting and again, like we were talking yesterday, it's because of these influences in comic art and then graphic and other design from previous eras like the 60s, 70s, even the 50s, where there was a big surge of non-traditional intersection of collage, typography, flat imagery, and photography, and the use of the sort of the silk screen or various kinds of printing process, and a lot of psychedelic and more radical counterculture graphic design and imagery, and how it and things like both Jack Kirby, Jim Steranko, of some of the underground cartoonists who did a lot of weird kludge together visual experiments, and then actually now what comes to mind again is some British designers of the 60s who were doing album covers and other kinds of material. A lot of that stuff all is in my head, and that cultural literacy, and then the cultural literacy of having looked at the material from the Victorian era and the Western era, and that then allowed me to use all of that visually in the page work, so that it wouldn't just look like, oh yeah, he colored it with Photoshop, or okay, that's digital painting, or something like that, but to really fuse it together in a way. Because my whole obsession with that book and any other future work that I would do at that intensity is to say, what I don't want to ever happen is for somebody to say, oh yeah, it's in Photoshop. Like what I'm very happy about. And it's not just to be clever, okay? Because like if it was just to be clever, then I could just do posters or something and get nice pat on the back. Oh, I'm so great. But it's really like when somebody sits there and leaves through the book and says, "Is this silk screen, or like, are you painting this, or what is this?" Like when anybody goes, "What is this?" Particularly somebody that's actually a designer or an illustrator, but even somebody who has a competent sort of interest in art in their comic reading, when they're really perplexed, then I totally know I did the job, because what it means is that when they look at that book, they are not in any way hung up on on any of the digital aspect of the creation of the book. They're actually just in the visual of the book. They're not even like.
No idea that you'd used.
Yeah.
I had no idea that that's what you used, because I honestly thought it was painted.
Nope, it's sort of, because there are many painted textures in the book, which are done on sheets of Bristol board, which I don't have within reach. But basically, imagine sheets of 1117 Bristol with large swaths of paint, color, spatter, black and white ink washes with various grain intensities or whatever that I've built, and then scanning that in and making that stuff into other colors or etc. And then certain textures that you could only really achieve digitally, or other real material textures, and bringing them together and affecting them with tweaks and stuff in Photoshop to make them blend in different ways. But the source material itself is real, so this way, or at least if I'm using a digital brush, I'm using a brush that is really designed to emulate a real material effect, so that nothing is, except for a few gradient color blends, almost everything is a result of something that really could happen. Now, of course, where that breaks the rule is like if there's blurs, or if there's, because there are certain effects that one can only do digitally, and they have a digital look, and they do stand off. But twinkling lights that are not graphically drawn, they're real lights, right? But yeah, so that's the thing. It's like that's what I'm trying to achieve with it, because the thing is, especially because it's period, and I don't have the skills, the draftsman skills, to produce an entire period work, to draw the architecture, to illustrate or paint every single detail. So, if it's not going to be able to achieve that way, then it has to have verisimilitude, and it has to have period authenticity through this entire other way. And the other way is to say, through collage and through the intersection of visuals and tropes and various sort of textural schemes that are associated with that period. And those are all generally gritty and natural in their painting texture and so on, right? So I think,
the first thing that when you were talking about like the styles and not just sort of like the painted up, but the eras that they were done, one of the first things that jumped out at me was just looking at Andy Warhol and the I forgot what was it, Silver Factory or the Silver?
Mm-hmm. Well, the factory, but the factory was pretty much decorated in silver paint and foil and so forth. Yeah,
it was the Andy Warhol style, and that sort of the obscurity, but having the obscurity about something so specific.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that was one of the first things that jumped out at me, because I studied some of Andy Warhol's work, and then along going into music side of things.
Right.
So for me, when you were talking about sort of like the era in which you wanted some of the graphics to go to, and also that use of older works and things, that was something that really jumped out at me. And I was trying to remember his name, and I couldn't think of the life of me his name yesterday.
Well, it's very interesting that you mentioned Andy Warhol, because that would be a big boost to Bill Woodcock, the writer and co-creator of Holliday Mountain Madness, because he has brought up several times about things like Warhol, and specifically Warhol, in terms of ways to graphically have impact without it having to be a literal illustration of a thing, right? To just use the material of the time rather than, say, completely re-render. In the future issues, I'm going to be pushing myself to draw more and more material, but it's not like the book is going to have a sudden shift in the look or something like that much. But mostly because I see where I will run out of material to use, right? So there will be. So I'm going to make sure to massage it in so that it's not like this abrupt cut off point or something. But one of the things that Bill, and that's really funny, because the last time we had a conversation, he was talking about Warhol, and it was in those same contexts, and so that's really great that you're picking that up too.
Oh yeah, definitely, very much Warhol.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, like, all these things are out there, and I mean, everybody is going to come to anything that they do when they decide to shift from being essentially like a hobbyist or a fan, right? Or I should say, when you make the shift from being a fan to a hobbyist to, I guess you could call it like an amateur indie creator, which is what we all are essentially. We're amateur indie creators. We're not being paid for a living to do what we do. And even I am not in any way, shape, or form at the same caliber in terms of art as, a number of professionals that I would either, admire or even are just contemporary, in the industry, right? Yeah. Howard Chaykin once said that he was the least talented and least capable of his generation, but he pushed himself harder and harder, and he still got published, right? But he, he admits that, and I would actually absolutely say the same thing, but with the caveat that like one must also do the best that one can in one's space that you're occupying at the time, and to try to do at least the best that you can. So that being said, I think that it behooves any creator who's going to get into making creative fiction, particularly genre fiction, which is almost always has a period attached to it, even if it's a contemporary one. It really is, I think, critical to have cultural literacy beyond the medium that you're working in and the genre that you're working in, because otherwise the whole thing is sort of built on a scaffolding that is incredibly narrow and incredibly fragile.
Yeah.
And for us it would be duh, but it's surprising how many people are making comics of all kinds, including a lot of like amateur versions of mainstream superhero material. But there is no internal scaffolding of cultural literacy, so therefore it is very difficult for the material to hold up.
Yeah.
Past a certain, Yeah,
it's the same with music. I mean, you can never work on anything and ignore the influences around you. I mean, like you said, you can pick to work on a theme of imagery from the 1800s, but you will never be able to create something as pure as it was in that period of time because of the influences that we live with now. And that's what I think is beautiful is that people should, not just ignore these sort of like influences in order to create something so pure. I mean, that's what you need. You need to be able to expand. You need to make something different. And it's like when you think of music, such as metal music, a lot of people go, metal music, but it's the amount of classical music that comes into that, and the techniques that come from so many different genres just to create this one type.
At least the good work.
Oh yes, at least the good work.
Yeah. And you can tell the difference between a new indie band that is essentially their effect, again, to use the terminology, their scaffolding and their cultural literacy is only the records that they listened to when they were a kid up to now, and those that actually have said, well, I must be a musician first, so in tandem with all the backlog of the catalog of music that I love, I must also understand the actual mechanics of composition and other more classical and maybe even exotic cultural music motifs and techniques, because if I don't have these other building blocks of music, let's say, in my brain, right, in my literacy, my work is just going to be basically like the photocopy of a photocopy, right?
Exactly. It's like and it's also moving into completely different genres. It's like I had a project I did where I looked at anamorphic art being the influence for a piece of music that I worked on. So I mean, anamorphic art is art that varies depending on where you are when you look at it, spatially around the piece or whether the piece moves. And I decided that I wanted to create a piece of music based on anamorphic art. So I took a Chinese lantern and I painted colors on this lantern and applied rules to whatever you could see. So whatever you could see at that particular point in time, that is what you were to play. So whether it was like a certain number of beats for the color orange, or I wanted you to play something that felt blue, things like that. So I would then just let it lift in the breeze with an orchestra sitting around it, and that was the project. So no matter what you did it could never be repeatable, because it was all left to chance. But it also meant that whatever was created also, on top of the rules, had the interpretation of the individual and had masses of influence from whatever style each of the individuals was influenced by. So it was never just a matter of, I'm creating something that is musical and in this genre. I was able to expand it past music to art and culture. And I mean, I absolutely adored doing this project because it was just something that allowed me to push boundaries and not just sort of sit and stagnate in the same ideas over and over again.
It's just entirely necessary in order to achieve something beyond, you know, I would even say the median common denominator. You know what I mean? If you want something that's going to, at least on some level, transcend, it's just really, really critically necessary to do that. You have to just investigate. You have to scratch in there. You have to consider other possibilities, so that it just stands out. And it's sort of like this duh kind of thing, but it isn't duh when you're in the midst of trying to create a thing and you're in the midst of trying to promote it, and there's all this other parts of it. Sometimes there's no time to even consider, oh, wait a minute, you know, am I actually adding anything to the catalog of blah? Like in this case, like in our case, comic, right? Like, are Bill and I adding anything to the catalog of weird Western comics or even comics in general with this thing? Or are we just like regurgitating a bunch of stuff that we liked and essentially are, you know, like photocopying a photocopy? And a lot of times there's no time to even think about that, right? You're for one thing, you're excited. For another thing, you're, you know, everybody thinks that their book is going to be either picked up by whatever fantasy publisher they think is going to pick it up, or that it's going to explode on its own. Now we have enough precedence on the internet and stuff, self-publishing explosions, whatever the dreamy dream is, right?
Yeah.
So all those things are mixing around in your head, and maybe you're not actually spending time and saying, you know, am I actually able, is my drawing really good enough? Is what I'm doing good enough? Is what I'm doing, and I don't mean good enough as to say, like, okay, so, you know, if my work is not as good as Enki Bilal, the great heavy metal, I believe French or Belgian, you know, cartoonist, the Inkle books and all that sort of thing. Is my work as good as him? If it's not good. I don't mean that, but I mean, like, am I actually pushing myself? Am I trying to achieve something here? Am I also trying to achieve something beyond the standard tropes that precede it? There's a lot of times there's no time to even consider those things, right? Or people don't take the time to consider those things before, you know, hitting the pedal and now engaging the process. So, you know, again, this is where things come into play with, like, you know, wouldn't it be a nice world if we could get creators connected to individuals like yourself who actually have the similar commitment, or maybe they don't realize they have it inside of them, to then maybe offline some of these aspects, not entirely, of course, but to offline some of these aspects and be able to have some room to push oneself creatively, right? Because what I see coming out of these things that you've done for other people is, you know, setting a precedent. I mean, it would be great if there was like 25 people like Pippa Bailey, right? And and I don't think there aren't, you see.
Yeah, they just don't know it yet.
They don't know it yet, or maybe they haven't really considered what they are doing currently, YouTube reviewers or whatever, bloggers and stuff. I think there's now, like, just like the internet exploded the indie artist, right? And it's taken us some time to sort of figure out what that means and what that is.
Yeah.
Now, I think actually there could be a watershed of the internet sort of fan who a fan turned into either barter or free marketing street team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing, is it's like taking the street team away from being a physical street team and having it be, you know, the mutual respect between people, and
right.
It's not just sort of
right. But also, but in other words, like what I think would be fascinating, right? And I think this is the reason why it hasn't caught on yet. And I think people like yourself, because I'm sure there must be others doing similar things out there, is that you guys don't have a DeviantArt. You guys don't have a Society 6.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And this is where I'm going to pitch you another thing. Like, because I'm like, amongst all the 10,000 other things, it would be fascinating for somebody to start a site that had the very narrow focus of, like, essentially the DeviantArt for marketeers and street teamers.
Yeah.
So that people could socialize around that subject and compare notes and say, hey, this is this thing I did. I really love this musician, and they needed blah, and I did it, and this is a way to document what happened or what's going on. And that would then, in turn, I think, if there was a network of that, then suddenly other people would say, oh, yeah, I could do that. And then they make an account, and then they start, like, kind of getting jazzed up, and then they find their thing that they really love. And then it's a way to bring creatives together with people who are also, like, in a sense, indie marketing people, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I think that could be very fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been contacted by people because of Kickstarters I have run support on.
Right.
And things that, because people know that, if I put my weight behind it, it's most likely to be successful because I've done my research and I've spent my time networking with people and I've built friendships. I mean, it's surprising, but kindness goes a long way. Having the patience to talk to somebody and the willingness to listen to what they need and what they want to do.
Right.
So it works wonders. Just sometimes people really want to talk about things, and that's great. It's just a lot of people are so busy and they're rushing around and they don't have the time to sit still and go, right, I'm actually going to consider what I want to do, and I'm going to consider what everyone else wants to do. I mean, you can be a fan of a product and you can be a fan of something and go, hey, yeah, that's great, but you're never really looking in depth at what it is and what it means and what you can do about that, because it's I mean, if you really care about something, get involved in it. I mean, don't just sit there in the background going, yeah, I like that. I mean, if you've got an opportunity to get involved, do it. Life's too short not to sort of put yourself out there and go, hey, I care about this. I want in. I want to be, because I'm so passionate about what I'm doing right now. It makes me so incredibly happy. And I mean, I'm big on, I love helping people. It's something that, it's a terrible character flaw that I just love making people happy. And I love helping people when I really should be getting more hours sleep or working on something that I just want to do to relax. But I get such a rush, and it just makes me so incredibly happy knowing that I'm helping people create their dreams. It's knowing that these people may not have an opportunity again to put their beliefs and their ideas out there, and I love the fact that I'm able to be a part of that.
I think that's really great, and I hope that I would hope that this could, like I said, set a precedent for other people to engage in a similar way, because I think it. I mean, the benefits are very clear for a whole lot of people. And, like getting back to an early thing that you said, if you're a person who really loves these kind of self-produced projects, and let's say you are a Kickstarter or other crowdfunding fan, and this is like kind of like your channel into those kinds of projects, and then ultimately the consumable that you get in your hand, then it's actually really critically important that some of the super fans of those projects go, no, you know what? Like, I'm actually going to go beyond maybe just Facebook share. I want to street team this thing. I want to plug into this thing and be part of this thing, right? Because then the book, maybe that could be the critical thing that tips it over and gets the thing made, right? So like you were saying that even on this pragmatic level, you're like, I have these skills and I thought this thing was going to happen. And I thought, well, all right, I guess I got to put the pedal to the metal and I got to be the one to do it because I want the book in my hand at the other end, right?
Exactly, yeah. It's like every person that I have contacted on Kickstarter or even Indiegogo, to do with any of these kind of like products, for me it's like I have backed all of them. I want this item, you know, and I care about the creator and what's going on, and yeah, I mean I want these creations to come to life, and I think that's you know, of course that's then a little bit of almost a selfish kind of mitigating factor. I want this item, therefore I'll put the work in. But a lot of the time you end up finding yourself caring so much about the product and seeing how passionate people are about what they're creating, and sometimes by the end of it, it doesn't matter if what you get isn't what you were looking for in the first place, if you know that you've helped bring this thing to life. Because without you and without the supporters, these things would never exist in the first place.
So, all of this now being said, and we can apply the specific of our book, Bill and our book, you know, to what we would do, right? Like, and I think it still has a universal message for people who might watch this video, right?
Yeah.
So we were talking about the specifics. You know, it's going to be like a year, and I think this is where this actually becomes useful information, right? The book is 40 pages done. We definitely see it as being roughly 160, 180 page graphic novel when it's finished, and really, individual issues are not probably as impactful. This story probably is really a graphic novel read first app.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that it's not that we have, I mean, we printed a first issue, and it's a really great thing to go to a convention and be able to like sell these books. But it's mostly actually just to sort of see what people do with it and how they react to it and their follow through with us, right? And we'll continue to make those individual issues, but that's the space that it occupies. It's not actually a space of like, you know, that's the book. The book is a pamphlet comic that comes out when it comes out, because it can't come out often enough to really be either lucrative or, you know, build an audience in that way, right? It's really like to just see what people's visceral reaction is to that book and paper in their hands, and then be able to follow up with fans, right, as it goes along. So you know, I said to you, like with health stuff, with other stuff, it's very likely that it will take at least a year or maybe a little over a year to finish the rest of the pages, right?
Yeah.
And then as we were having this conversation about making a Kickstarter, so which you also said that you felt would be pretty likely to be successful, with of course the proper. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I can't see any reason why it wouldn't be successful. And I mean, I've probably not worked with, but I've backed probably a good 130 different various projects, and have probably been on board with publicity for at least 30, maybe 40 of those. I think that there is so much good that this project can do, and I think that it will definitely blow some minds when it's out there. And certainly with the fact that you're covering content that I've not seen before, and that's something that fascinates me when I was reading it, is that I haven't seen this before. This is something new, and that's always exciting when you come across new ideas.
Thank you, by the way, because Bill and I have worked very, very hard so far, and that's, you know, it's a huge punch in the arm because, you know, those are the kind of things we need to hear from people who we could trust to have an authentic ability to evaluate something. Yeah. So that's meaningful. So just so the people watching this video can understand, you know, like, given those parameters, right? Given the parameters that I am the biggest choke in the funnel, and I have various issues, and I know for a fact that it will take time to finish that book. But given also that, and you're not the only person, which is really good to know too, that, you know, are saying this is a book that holds up. We've been told that it looks as good as a Vertigo book. I can't accept that completely, but I definitely, you know, take it with a great deal of humility and excitement. We individually, as our creators, love the book and would buy this book. So I know we're being authentic in terms of what we're creating. Yeah. but on the practical level, you know, like, given those parameters, what is the, you know, what's the basic plan? So like, that's what I want people to be able to see with this video. But as we're having this conversation, like, what are your thoughts about the plan? Some things we went over yesterday, but it wouldn't be bad to reiterate them now.
No. I mean, going into Kickstarter, it all depends on what you're creating to the timescale you kind of look at. I mean, when it comes to sort of electronics and physical items, they tend to have a larger length of time due to patenting and, you know, fixing issues with things. But when it comes to the majority of art projects, people are working on a time scale of you know, whatever they've worked on before they choose to go through Kickstarter. And it's very rare that anybody goes into Kickstarter with a finished product. It's always either an idea of a product or the basis for a product and part of it created, so you have something to show. So the fact that you're already going into this idea with your first sort of, you know, teaser into what this graphic novel is going to be, you know, your first sort of like 47 pages of sort of what the content's going to be, and, you know, blindingly colourful and trippy as it is, you know, it's something that's going to draw people in. But knowing that it's going to take a year plus to be in a position where it's going to be ready to sort of be released 2 months down the line, 3 months down the line, most people are not willing to sit and wait that length of time having paid for a product. That's where the issue falls in. And it's then when you go, okay, this isn't a bad thing. This gives me a year and a half to plan what I want to do, to build up the audience, to build up the publicity before the release. I mean, it's so much better to have people interested in the product before it's available than interested a year after it's released, when you really needed the support back when the countdown was happening. You know, nowadays, if you want to find yourself, I mean, I'm lucky enough that I've already met editors and publishers and things like that. But most people, if somebody's trying to release the book of their own, one of the biggest things nowadays is that they want you to be known. They want to be able to put you into Google and have you be the first person that pops up under that name, that you can be found, and your influence already in social media is there, because nobody wants to have a product go out with no audience. If there's nobody there to buy it, there's nobody there to take an interest in it, then it's the same as if the product never existed. You know, you may as well have created it for yourself and never try to put it out in the public. So I mean, this gives you the opportunity to take a year and a half of building publicity, getting people interested in seeing this product, getting behind some of the, you know, with the smaller releases that you're doing. Oh, sorry. You know, I mean, you've got people that will be desperate to see the next issue coming out and then wanting to have the entire thing when it's ready. And that's, you know, a fantastic opportunity. So we're saying, you know, looking at maybe July, August next year, gives you a year under your belt to go, right, I'm prepared to start this Kickstarter knowing that in a month's time, when it's completed, I need to have this done within 4 months, or I you know, and knowing that you will be well enough and prepared enough to do that, or whatever timescale we choose to sort of look at as being right for you. But it's just, you've got this time now, knowing what you want to do with it, you know, knowing where you want to go. There's so much more opportunity to build this audience, which is one of the better ways to go about things.
And that's why I thought this had value, even though it's got such like kind of extreme delay into it and build up into it. You know, I think I'm not alone because you might not have, let's say, chronic variable health issues, but you might have, let's say, you know, a family, or you might have a full-time job. So you might have equivalent delays in building up that book. And the thing is, without a plan and without, frankly, a positive plan that says, okay, sure, there are these delays involved, but let's look at it from this perspective, like what can be done to take advantage of that delay. But without having that plan, and actually, frankly, without discussing that plan with a person who has some amount of experience in this area, how is one supposed to do this? You're basically bumping around in the dark, and then nothing happens, right? Or maybe an unsuccessful thing happens. So that's why I thought there was value with this too, because I don't think everybody is a person who can just chug along, get a bunch of stuff done. and then flip it into a Kickstarter, and bing, bang, boom, it's a big success. There are people who have various different factors that could get in the way, but it doesn't mean it's not a deserving project, and it doesn't mean it doesn't have qualitative merit, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it wouldn't make some money or earn the money that you want to try to earn with it, right? So like one of the things we talked about too is that that it is not necessary, even still in the game, even, by the way, taking into account some rather disastrous comic Kickstarters over the years, which we don't have to go in detail about, but they exist. Even with that in play, I had this misunderstanding that we would have to have the entire book finished in order to really look like we had our shit together. But you countered to me that actually that would not be necessary, and you had an idea about how that could, how to make that work. So can you explain what you were thinking?
Well, it's things like The Untold. I mean, that is still being created, and then knowing about Ben Jones and Asgard, he is still working on this. You don't need to go in with a finished product, because, I mean, you're looking at the cost of buying the things to create the product. I mean, if you're printing, you've got to buy the paper, you've got to buy the ink, you've got to buy the pens, you've got to make sure you've got the time, even down to paying for the electricity to have your lamp set up to do the work. I mean, that's all of these costs should be coming from this Kickstarter, because it's supposed to be a sustainable product. You're not supposed to end up out of pocket at the end of this. So, right. You can't always go into this with a final product. I mean, there are some things that I backed that I am waiting 2 years for, because I know that things have got in the way, things have been delayed, and that does happen. But yeah, I mean, there's so much you can do before a product's out and before you've completed it. And it's fascinating now seeing people working to a target. So going, right, we have said we will get this product out in October. We now have to work hard to have this completed in time. So, you and I see within Studio Synergy the work that's going on with Pete and his inking at the moment on the Untold project, having known that the penciling is being completed by Joanna's. So I get to see that. I mean, working as an administrator on their project, I get to see that perspective as well. And I mean, it's like today, I mean, I'm balancing out reviews that I've got to do this evening still with other things, just to kind of keep on top of my promises to things, because it's like my with the Ghoul Guides, I mean, it's the same as the Kickstarter. I can make promises on what I'll do, but if I don't deliver, it still falls by the wayside. If I'm sent a product to review, I need to get on it and get it done. Whether I can keep to it'll be done today or not is sort of all down to my work ethic.
So like in terms of the practical end of our particular project, and given those time factors and everything, and again, I think that even though this is a very specific situation, I think it's completely applicable to anybody who's doing a comic, wants to do crowdfunding, and needs to really, really consider what they're doing and not just go blindly into the dark, right? So like we're talking about, 160, 180 pages. I think, we got 40, so it's about 120 pages to go. I think it's about a year, could be a little more, but not in terms of the time specifically, but more in terms of pages. Where would you say, what quantity of pages is the cutoff point where then one could start the Kickstarter and say, look, it's X pages to go, and now we're going to start this Kickstarter and try to finish the project?
Yeah, I mean, you want to be sort of 2/3 there, so you're confident in where this is going to go. It's not a matter of what's going to change in this story, or do I need to change anything big. You need to be in the position where you know exactly where everything is going. You've already got to the point where you know how your time balances with the first sort of 120 pages you've created, for example. If you're aiming for 160, you want to have 120 done. You want to know how you balance your time, because by that point you've had enough experience over that year to know, right, I can get these 40 pages out in 4 months. I know that I'll be done in 4 months and this product can go out the door.
Right.
And then it's also the planning that you need to be prepared for with the Kickstarter, because I've seen so many projects where people don't really know what to offer their audience. Because I mean, they've come up with the idea of this is the product I want to sell, but if you don't make it interesting, if you don't pique people's interest with what they can get hold of or what makes it special, you can have an amazing product, you can have a finished product, but if you're not selling it the right way to the audience, then you know it's not going to get picked up. So you need the time as well. So that's another reason why it's fantastic that you've got this time, because while you're working on creating this, we can sit there and go, okay, what is it that you want to do with this Kickstarter? How do you want to set this out? What kind of levels do you want to work with? You know, what is it that's going to make this stand out against everything else that's there, other than, you know, the beautiful artwork and the beautiful story that there is there in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the fact that, you know, I would say you want to have 120 pages done, knowing you've got 40, which means that you've got something new to show to people. You don't want to say, this is what I've got already. It gives you the opportunity to go, right, here's the latest 10 pages. Here's a little hint from this, you know, and here's another hint from what else has been released recently.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's all sort of little things like that make a difference.
Are there a lot of people that actually, because I have to be honest, like, I mean, I know a lot about Kickstarter as a civilian, and I certainly look at Kickstarters. I've supported one. And I know about Patreon. I've supported a couple of people. I still am on Patreon on a low level, but, you know, I putting my money where my mouth is, right? And I know GoFundMe and all the rest of it. But like at this point, like, do a lot of people begin or engage Kickstarter to crowdfund actually not even having a book done yet, or part of their book done yet, or you know, like in terms of, you know, is it common for people to have essentially like really kind of vapor to start, or how does that go?
It all depends on your history, I suppose. If you're somebody who's had products out before, if you're a known name and people know they can rely on your creations, then you can go in there with, I've got an idea, I'm aiming to get a book out later on this year, and this is going to be the theme. If people know your products and they know that they're interested in what you do, you can start out with a vapor trail and people will back that product.
Very interesting. See, that fascinates me, because I would think people would be kind of a little more, you know,
apprehensive over.
Yeah, and or at the very least have the cynicism or scrutinization to be like, yeah, well, you know, I want to see, you know, I want to see some of that book. I want to see some of that thing. And I don't mean that people are not being careful or considerate of their money. I just figured like people are just so cynical and savvy on a certain level on the internet that you'd just be like, yeah, right. And they pass along to the one that actually has maybe like at least like 15 pages or a well documented series booklet, or, you know what I mean? You know, architecture of what's to come.
Again, that goes back into the whole kind of social connecting with people, because you're more at the point now where you can meet with people and you can discuss things with people. It's easier to trust the people that you're putting your faith in with these projects. It's easier for you to go, okay, I know this person's created this stuff, because you can go and find out what people have worked on before. You know what kind of businesses they run. You know their history, and you can go, okay, I trust this person's opinions. I trust this person's work ethic. I'm happy to back this, knowing what there is. But there are so many. I mean, you can go onto Kickstarter, and you will find some absolute rubbish on there, to be honest, where it's somebody who's never had any product, never done anything, and they've got like a scribble on a bit of paper going, I'm designing a shoebox on wheels. Here's back the products.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's
nobody will ever look at it.
Right. I mean, there's an awful lot of well-intended, but just it's not going to go anywhere. I was actually, you know, I wasn't actually going quite to that extreme, but more just, you know, wondering like, you know, how many books are getting financing without there being substantial proof of concept and even proof of execution.
Quite a lot. There is quite a lot, and probably several that I have here now were literally based in ideas. So it's like this one I've got here that I've been looking at recently, which is This is why we can't have anything nice.
Yeah, that's a great title. Okay.
And this is literally somebody's diary over a year. So they'd just been scribbling down ideas, but they hadn't got a book of any kind. And they suddenly went, what if I organize my thoughts and turn it into something?
Interesting. So, so what they had to sell in their Kickstarter was concept, and I would assume probably at least some of their design work for the book or portfolio work.
It was more a matter of this is what I've created previously.
Okay, so they had at least some kind of material back in a backlog way that would allow for people to be confident.
Comedy sells really well.
Interesting.
So the fact that this was a niche item is what sold it to me.
Right. Well, then in that case, I think we're not going to be getting anywhere because there's no
comedy. But you've got.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah,
you've got something that stands out. That's different. Almost everything I've got is because something about it made me go, there's something special there.
And that's actually. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say there's something that's different that I've not seen before.
Right.
And that's why I backed most of the things I have.
That's something anyone watching this would be kind of interested to hear too, and I actually wouldn't mind expanding on it a little bit, is that they're just like, I'm sure with music or some other kinds of items on Kickstarter, you have, I mean, I'm sure you buy comics outside of Kickstarter, but you did say that at least for quite a while now, the majority of the graphic novels or whatever that you're getting or reading are actually Kickstarter projects.
Yeah, almost everything on these shelves behind me is through Kickstarter, but there's things that have been bought separately. So like what I'm planning on reviewing, well, if I get time this evening, because it's actually 20 to midnight here.
Oh, geez. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
It's going a little too late.
I went to the ICE convention in...
what does ICE stand for?
International Comic Book Exhibition, I believe it was.
In the UK?
And that was in Birmingham, so it's
in Birmingham.
in the UK, and that was an international. So we had lots and lots of people there.
Okay.
And I picked up tons, and I spoke to almost every indie. I mean, they had, the top floor had pretty famous comic book creators and artists, and then, second floor had like less, and then the ground floor top area had the indie creators. And so I spent my entire day on the indie creator floor because that's where I want to be, because when you're getting up to the higher level, the only way you can really support these creators is by buying their product. Whereas I'm looking at people that need more. They need to be known, not just money in the pocket. So I mean, I'm looking at reviewing this later on today, or go to bed. And I was actually sent this, so I didn't purchase this outside. I was actually sent this. So it's nice. It's been signed as well. I'm very excited.
That's great.
I love getting things signed. But yeah, this is what I'm looking at. Today, I go to events specifically looking for artwork.
So, but is that a book that had a Kickstarter?
No, I don't believe it did.
So that's basically a self-published book that you found at the
going for it, and they're all. Gotcha. I mean, and in the same room there were people who had Kickstarters, who were then selling their product post Kickstarter, and they're some of the people that are the reason I was there, because they invited me to come along because I had supported their products, reviewed their products, and they said, hey, we want to meet you in person.
Right.
So
wow. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So this book, for example, so I can get it without knocking everything off my shelves, which is going to be a challenge, I think.
This is also This is also part of the dynamic uniqueness of social media, because you're in your living room or bedroom or wherever.
I'm in my bedroom.
Right, and you're reaching backwards at your bookshelf, and maybe the books are going to fall off the shelf. We don't know, and that's what's unique about self-made media like this, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody's ever really questioned why do you not have an office? Why do you not work from there?
Or why don't you have like a virtual set with a green screen or something?
Yeah,
like that?
No, I work from my bed because that is my office at the moment.
Well, it's the most comfortable chair in the house, right? So
definitely,
yeah.
It's and I'm sat there with kiddie wallpaper and all sorts of things around me, and this is pretty much where I live.
Yeah. But yes, the book.
I work with whatever I've got, because the content of what I'm doing should matter more than my money and my settings.
Right.
But yes, so this was by a lovely woman called Katie Whittle and her other half, Tom Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a Kickstarter one, so it's got its Kickstarter logo.
Oh, I see.
So I backed this because it's because I'm a vegetarian and I'm into, you know, animal support and animal rights and stuff. And anyway, this is very much leading into horror based within animal support. And
interesting, huh?
So it's take only photographs and leave only footprints. It's a story about a couple that go to a beach and they take away some seashells that are still alive. They've still got like mussels in them. And they stink and they're rotten. And she asks her boyfriend to get rid of these, take them back to the beach, you know, where they belong. And he doesn't. He flushes them, and it sort of causes some kind of weird Twilight Zone ecological disaster where people start to become sort of like taken over by these barnacles, and they start to morph and they start to become sort of. It's just it gets really creepy.
So it's a combination of sort of like really good old-fashioned EC kind of vengeance horror, but also we're talking about body horror and then the social political implications of these underlying themes as well.
You know, style-wise, it's very unusual. It's specifically in a particular style of Japanese Japanese art, and I can't remember what it's called.
Oh yeah, like Sohiro and some of those creators
I can never remember what it was because
is it Ikiga or something? Is that the term I'm thinking of? Of course, I'm butchering it, but I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Katie actually mentioning it, but yeah. So I mean, because of this, they were then doing they were showing their stuff at the ICE and other projects that they've worked on, and so it was fantastic to sort of, you know, through social media. I've then met them, discussed the product, discussed what they want to do further, you know, and they've now invited me to write for their magazine that they do monthly. So I'm currently writing a review on another product that was on Kickstarter, and that again gets to go further because that's now going through the magazine of another Kickstarter and so on and so forth. So I mean, it is just amazing to see people outside of the Kickstarters selling their product, knowing that they made enough money supporting it through Kickstarter to produce more, to go on to sell this product that now has a fan basis. They can say, hey, yeah, this was a successful Kickstarter. People cared enough about this product to get it made. Come take a look at what we've got to show. Oh,
okay. Right. That's good. That's okay. That's interesting. Because one of the things I was like, I don't think this is, uncommon, is like, thinking of Kickstarter and crowdfunding in general as strictly a non-physical event, right? Like it's almost like that there's no there can't be any physical component to doing like a Kickstarter. It's all on the internet, right?
Yeah,
and that's obviously not the case, right? I mean, one can actually
get involved.
Get involved. Yeah. So that's also, again, kind of this kind of unique thing about what we're talking about. Like there are these other aspects of it. And this is where, again, where having some kind of coach, advisor, whatever is really, I think, could be very critical, because, you know, those are ideas that I don't think everybody considers, you know.
Yeah.
That there's this whole other aspect to it.
Yeah, I think people are just far too nervous to put themselves out there and contact people. But I mean, if you're passionate about something, life's too short not to take that risk, not to say to somebody, hey, what you do amazes me. I'd love to know more. That's what it comes down to, is people taking the opportunity to go, I love what you're doing.
Yeah. I
want to know about it. You know, I'm not just a fangirl about products. You know, it'd be great if I was, then in the studio synergy thing with the artists that are in there, I would just be sitting there going, oh, yay! But I don't, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going to act like a person, and I'm going to get involved with products and not just spend my time being overly excited about everything.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So going back a little bit to our particular situation. and maybe it would be interesting if we could record some subsequent conversations. I mean, obviously, when you're recording it and you know it's going to be seen by people, you kind of put on different airs, almost like a radio show or something, and it's harder to be completely genuine. But I think we're doing a pretty good job. But
same, no matter where I am.
yeah, right. But like, let's say if we were going to talk about now some nuts and bolts, like we know there's a year, maybe even a year and 3 months or whatever ahead. But like in the right now, we're not talking about a Kickstarter. Essentially, in the right now, we're talking about the nuts and bolts of making the book. But like we have a Facebook. Bill and I have a Facebook page for Holiday Mountain Madness, and it is facebook.com. I don't know. Yeah, Holiday Mountain Madness. Yeah. Facebook.com. I forgot how, because I know for groups it's a little different, but
it is. Yeah, I was actually looking at the page this morning because I have an hour before I actually start work, and so I got to work this morning and started looking over things.
Yeah, and I actually the latest post I just made was the post I've made concerning this podcast, which is great because we actually have a new post after I think June or something like that. But so then. Building social capital, and in this case, meaning social capital, meaning social network capital and marketing capital. Because obviously this applies to other people, what would be the first step of a engagement process with readers and potential readers and promotion that would make sense to, number one, just be a general purpose promotion of this book as it's being made, right? Just as a general sense. But obviously with this intention to down the road be converting this to Kickstarter success, right? So since we know we have a year and 3 months or year and whatever it is, that's a lot of time. I mean, and that's valuable time, and it could actually be really great that there's so much time, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's not a bad thing.
Right. So being that we have this unique situation, and given now that, as long as this works out, you're in a position to maybe throw some energy into it that Bill and I don't have individual time to do. I don't mean you have to dictate an entire game plan, but I mean, what in general do you think is the smart moves to be making right now?
I mean, you've got to treat it as if it was a film coming out at the cinema. Mm-hmm. You need people to be able to see that little bit of a teaser as to, that I know there's something coming, and I know that it's going to look great. So, I mean,
fortunately, we have 40 pages of teaser, which is
exactly
good, right.
You've got 40 pages there. So whether you start getting promotions running across several pages with different people saying, "Hey, look at this. This is going to be coming soon." Find out more about the artist. Because it's the more people know about you, the more they care about the project. Other than going, this is a great comic book. If you don't know where it's coming from, how are you ever going to find it again? And I mean, I'd love to review the first 40 pages that are there anyway, because again, that means that I'm getting a video out there on YouTube. I'm getting people involved in the project. I'm putting it out further because it's, a picture tells 1,000 words. And if you've got a video out there telling you and showing you, because some people don't have the time to go and read things themselves, but they'll watch a video.
Right.
So I would say, getting a review out there on the first 40 pages is going to be one of the best ways to start off. And then to look at, what's new, what's coming with this product, what's the next idea that you've got, what's the next thing you're going. And people want weekly updates. I mean, you set up a schedule for a weekly update, set up a schedule for a weekly video where you're discussing the project so people can stay on board with what's going on. They know when it's going to be released. They know when they can get involved in it and the countdown. And that's the thing, is that people will be, people queue around the block to get into the cinema to see these new releases that they're excited about because it's been building up for the last year. This is coming soon. And you've got to treat it the same way. You've got to pique people's interest. You've got to get them involved with the excitement with this product's going to be out there. What do you want to do about it? Do you want to sort of stand at the sidelines and have a look at it when it finally turns up, or
hold on a second. I'm sorry about that.
That's fine.
I had to just stop that. That was my stupid phone. Can you just repeat what you were saying?
Yeah, I was just saying, it's like, people will be queuing around the block to sort of watch it, to get tickets to go see a movie. You need to treat it the same way with the with doing this Kickstarter, with doing the build up to it. You want people to know that, this is what's coming out now. This is what's making this project more exciting. This is, you know, our weekly meeting. You can tune in and find out what we're doing this week. You know, you can get involved in it, and then that leads to more people discussing. So one person sees your art and says that's amazing. They tell two of their friends, who tell two of their friends, who tell two of their friends. You know, and it's just, it spreads the word, and it works really well. I mean, it's worked well for me with Ghoul Guides, and I found at the end of the day, just literally saying to somebody, hey, have a look at this, or would you mind sharing this with your friends because I think it's something they're interested in, goes a hell of a lot further than you'd think. So I mean, okay, I've gone from, because I mean, we created Ghoul Guides at the beginning of May this year, so that's how long I've been doing this under an official title, official name, you know. But that's like what, 6 months?
Yeah, it's a short period of time.
Oh yeah. So our audience has gone from nothing to you know, increased over 200% in 6 months, and we've become involved in projects all across the world in these 6 months, and yeah, it's just constantly expanding and I'm finding no problem at all getting products promoted, getting them created. It's all about, you know, talking about what people want. And that's the other thing with this time, is people can discuss the product with you. You know, what do they want to see? Because a lot of the time a product comes out, people are making suggestions and nobody's ever responding to them, and people want to know that their voice is heard. They want to know that their opinions count. So having this time, you can go, hey, we're looking at releasing this next couple of pages, and we're looking at going about it this way. You know, what do you guys think? We want to know what you care about. We want to know what you think about this compared with the other part.
Right.
You know, do you like that it's this dark, or would you rather have it be, you know, the story's going to be following this arc? You know, is this something that interests you? And you know, the fact that people can give back to the situation, give back to the story, it means a lot more to people knowing they can get involved.
And that you see as accumulating over, let's say, 12 months or 15 months, as having a lot of power, a build of power, that maybe if the book was already done, or, you know, basically if we were ready to start that Kickstarter now and nobody knew anything, and we had this very limited amount of social support built up, maybe a Kickstarter right now, let's say if we had the whole material done or something, we actually might not have the same empowerment now that we would maybe have in 12 months or 15 months.
No, I mean, I still think on the merit of the designs and what you've got there, you would still manage to hit the target.
I see.
But I think that with the fact that you've got the time to build up, I think that you can turn this into a much bigger thing than it would be with just, here's the product, it's here. You know, no advert, no building the interest. But, you know, once you've got the interest there, people are then going to be going, well, what's coming next? What have you got next to show us? We want to see more from you. Can
we pause just for a second? Just 30 seconds. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Okay.
Just like all live media, I had something in the oven, and
yeah, you don't want to have super burnt crispy stuff.
Some of it is, but that's okay. That's okay.
No.
That's life.
Food.
And speaking of getting crispy, I have a funny feeling that you're just about crispy.
The crap.
And everything. I guess you're up,
done, because I need to be up for work in
and I'm
7 hours.
And I really appreciate your being able to engage at this late hour. So first of all, great conversation concerning this, again, this unique intersection of where fans can get way more interactive with their creators and projects that they want to see happen, and how they can be part of even, more aggressive marketing and all of this stuff, and where barter can get involved, and where where these unique sort of indie ground level opportunities can benefit both the creator and the end user beyond, and really eliminate some of this divide. Great conversation about individual stories coming into it, and also obviously really appreciate your interest and your desire to engage in Bill Woodcock and my book Holiday Mountain Madness. And what I'm hoping to do is, not just for terms of historically to record this process, but like to have it be universally something that others who are in the same boat can relate to. And so, I think both myself, obviously others who have engaged with you, would be thankful that you're interested in doing all this stuff. And, and it's really good to talk to you. And you are also, you have your YouTube channel is Ghoul Guides, like GHOUL Guides.
Yeah, the Ghoul Guides. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, literally, if you just type in the Ghoul Guide, it's pretty much like the
Facebook and all the rest.
But
yeah,
thing is being chopped off with barbed wire.
Right. And right. And look for Pippa Bailey's reviews, as well as her own on their upcoming writing to be published, and also her participation in Peter Palmiotti's Studio Synergy group casts and so forth. So thanks so very much for doing my first Flameape Conversations on YouTube, and I look forward to talking to you next week or in the oncoming future about what we'll be working on together.
Yeah, definitely. It's been really great to chat about everything again, and to get sort of ideas out there, and hopefully we can help some more people rather than just ourselves.
That'd be great. Thank you, Pippa.
Not a problem. You have a good night.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.